They never told us what really happened to the Cassini spacecraft. My name is Ethan Holloway, and until 3 months ago, I was a data analysis technician at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. I say was because technically I'm still employed there, but I haven't set foot in the building since the incident. My therapist says I should write this down, get it all out. She thinks what happened to me is some kind of stress-induced breakdown. She's wrong. It started with my brother's accident. Sam was always the reckless one, speeding down mountain roads on his motorcycle, climbing rock faces without proper gear. When I got the call that he'd crashed his car off Highway 2 near Angeles Crest, I wasn't even surprised, just numb. The police said he'd taken a curve too fast, lost control, and plummeted down the ravine. They found his body nearly 100 feet from the wreckage, as if he'd been thrown free or, and this thought didn't occur to me until much later, as if he'd been trying to escape something. I took 3 weeks of bereavement leave, arranged the funeral, packed up his apartment in Echo Park. Then I went back to work because what else could I do? The crushing weight of grief followed me, but at least at JPL, surrounded by data and code, I could pretend to function. My supervisor, Dr. Wesley Thompson, was surprisingly accommodating. He assigned me to an independent project, digitizing and categorizing some of Cassini's final transmissions before it plunged into Saturn's atmosphere in 2017. Simple work, he said, something to ease you back in. For those who don't know, Cassini was a spacecraft that spent 13 years orbiting Saturn, sending back incredible images and data. Its final act was a controlled descent into the planet's atmosphere, a grand finale that would destroy the craft but provide valuable scientific information. I remember sitting at my workstation that first day back, staring at the endless streams of data packets, signal strengths, atmospheric readings, telemetry, and buried among them thousands of images, most already processed and catalogued, but some flagged for review due to transmission anomalies. That's when I found the first image. At first, I thought it was just digital noise, corruption in the transmission. But as I enhanced it, cleaned it up bit by bit, I began to see structures, geometric forms that shouldn't exist in a gaseous planet, angular shadows where there should be only swirling clouds. I told myself it was pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns where none exist, like seeing faces in clouds or on Mars. I was grieving, stressed, overworked. Of course my brain would play tricks. But then I found the second image, and the third, each clearer than the last, each showing the same impossible formations beneath Saturn's cloud layers. And alongside them, a string of data packets I couldn't decode with our standard algorithms. I should have reported it immediately, should have shown Dr. Thompson. Instead, I copied the files to my personal drive and spent the next week developing a custom decryption program. When I finally broke the encryption, I wished I hadn't. The data wasn't just telemetry, it was instructions, rules, 7 of them to be precise. And following them has become my only hope of survival. The first rule was simple: do not discuss the images with anyone. I printed out the decrypted instructions and kept them folded in my wallet. I'd read them so many times the creases were starting to tear, but I couldn't risk someone finding them on my computer. Looking back, I realized that following the first rule was my initial mistake. If I'd just shown someone, anyone, maybe things would have turned out differently. After 2 days of working with the anomalous Cassini data, I noticed Dr. Thompson watching me from across the lab. Not obviously, but with that peripheral attention that makes your skin crawl. When he finally approached my desk, I quickly minimized the image I'd been enhancing. "How's it going, Ethan?" he asked, coffee mug in hand, the JPL logo faded from years of washings. "Fine," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Just working through the backlog." He nodded, eyes lingering on my screen a moment too long. "Find anything interesting?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "No, just the usual. Data corruption, transmission errors." He sipped his coffee. "You know, you've been logging a lot of hours on this project. More than I expected." "Just trying to stay busy," I said. "Helps with the grief." Something in his expression softened. "I understand. but don't push yourself too hard. And Ethan, if you find anything unusual, anything at all, bring it to me first." That last part wasn't a suggestion, it was an order. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing those structures in Saturn's clouds, geometric and precise, obviously artificial. I knew what I'd found, evidence of non-human intelligence. But why was it buried in Cassini's final transmissions? And why did the rules specifically warn against sharing the images? The second rule was more cryptic. At 3:33 a.m., be awake and facing north. Acknowledge what you see. I didn't understand what it meant until my third night after discovering the data. I was working late at home, enhancing another image that showed what looked like a massive depression in Saturn's cloud layer, almost like an entrance, when my computer suddenly shut down. The power in my apartment went out, plunging me into darkness. My phone was dead too. Perfect. I felt my way to the kitchen, found a flashlight, and checked my watch. 3:27 a.m. Something clicked in my mind. The second rule. I oriented myself using the compass app on my now mysteriously functional phone and faced north, toward my living room window. For several minutes, nothing happened. The street outside was silent, empty. No cars, no pedestrians. Just the occasional flicker of a streetlight. 3:33 a.m. The streetlight directly outside my window went out. Then, one by one, in perfect sequence, every light on my block died. The darkness was absolute, except for a single point of light in the sky, far too bright to be a star. It pulsed once, twice, 3 times. "I see you," I whispered, not knowing why I said it. The light flared brilliantly, then vanished. Seconds later, the power returned. My computer rebooted itself, the screen displaying a new image I'd never seen before. It showed a close-up of one of the structures from Saturn, but clearer now. A massive angular construct with what appeared to be apertures or windows, and inside one of those apertures, a silhouette. Something was looking back at the camera. At us. At me. When I went into work the next morning, Dr. Thompson was waiting at my desk. "Unusual power outage in your neighborhood last night," he said without preamble. My mouth went dry. "How did you—" "We monitor our employees, Ethan, especially those working with sensitive data." He placed a hand on my shoulder, his fingers digging in just slightly. "I think you should take the rest of the week off. You still seem affected by your brother's passing." It wasn't a suggestion. At home, I pored over the remaining rules, trying to make sense of them. The third rule stated, "When they call using a familiar voice, do not answer directly. Speak only to what's behind them." I didn't have to wait long to understand this one. That evening, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Sam Holloway, my dead brother. My hand trembled as I answered. "Hello? Ethan, it's me." Sam's voice, exactly as I remembered it. "Listen, I need you to tell me what you found in those Cassini transmissions." I almost responded instinctively, desperate to hear my brother's voice again, to pretend for just a moment that he was still alive. But the rule echoed in my mind. Instead, I said, "Who's with you? Who's making you call me?" A long pause. "What are you talking about? I'm alone." "I'm not talking to you," I said firmly. "I'm talking to whatever's behind you, whatever's making you say these things." Another pause, longer this time. Then Sam's voice changed, deepened, distorted, vibrating at a frequency that made my teeth ache. "Clever human," it said. "You follow instructions well." "What are you?" I whispered. "We are the operators. We built the gate. Your primitive device saw it before its destruction. Now you carry our signal. What do you want from me?" "Continue to follow the rules," it said. "They will prepare you." "Prepare me for what?" The call disconnected. I spent the rest of the night awake, staring at my phone, half expecting it to ring again. It didn't. But when morning came, I found a new image on my computer, one showing the same structure as before, but from inside, and it looked disturbingly like a control room. The fourth rule read, "Your reflection is no longer yours alone. Cover all mirrors when not in use. When using, ask permission first." I wasn't sure what to make of this one until I stepped into my bathroom the morning after the phone call. Still groggy from my sleepless night, I flicked on the light and faced the mirror above the sink, only to see my reflection staring back with its eyes closed. I stumbled backward, heart lurching into my throat. For a fleeting second, I thought I'd imagined it. Then my reflection's eyes snapped open. They weren't my eyes. Too dark, too empty, like looking into the void of space. I scrambled out of the bathroom, slamming the door behind me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I pressed my back against the wall, trying to process what I'd just seen. The rules. I needed to follow the rules. With shaking hands, I found an old bedsheet in my closet, returned to the bathroom, and draped it over the mirror. I did the same with the full-length mirror in my bedroom and the decorative one in the hallway. By noon, every reflective surface in my apartment was covered. That evening, needing to shave before a mandatory meeting with JPL's staff psychologist the next day, I stood before my bathroom mirror, sheet in hand. "May I use the mirror?" I asked, feeling ridiculous. No response came. Of course not. What had I expected? Cautiously, I pulled down the sheet. My reflection appeared normal. Tired eyes, stubbled jaw, the same exhausted expression I'd been wearing for weeks. As I lathered shaving cream onto my face, I noticed a slight delay in my reflection's movements. Just a fraction of a second, but enough to make me freeze. "Thank you for your permission," my reflection said, its lips moving independently of mine. I dropped the razor, cutting my finger on the blade. Blood dripped into the sink. "We've been watching you for some time, Ethan Holloway," it continued, "ever since your brother encountered us." "Sam," my voice cracked. "What does my brother have to do with this?" "His vehicle didn't malfunction. He saw something on the road that night. Something he wasn't supposed to see." The reflection tilted its head, studying me. "An advanced scout. One of the first to come through the gate." "The gate on Saturn?" My reflection smiled. Not my smile, too wide, too knowing. "One of many gates. We've been building them for millennia, throughout your solar system. Saturn's was merely the first your kind discovered." Blood from my cut dripped steadily into the sink. I wrapped a towel around my finger, mind racing. "What are you?" "We told you. We are the operators." The reflection gestured to the bathroom around me. "Reality requires maintenance, continuous adjustments. Someone must operate the machinery that keeps existence stable. And that's you?" "For this sector, yes." The reflection leaned closer to the glass. "We've watched your species evolve. Primitive, but with potential. Most importantly, some of you have the capacity to see what others cannot, to accept truths beyond your understanding, like you, Ethan." "Why me?" "Your brother was our initial candidate. After his disqualification, we needed a replacement, someone connected to him. Blood calls to blood. I thought of Sam's broken body at the bottom of that ravine. The police report said he'd been thrown clear of the vehicle, but what if he'd been running from something? What if he'd seen what these operators really looked like?" "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Follow the rules, learn our ways. Prepare yourself." The reflection's eyes darkened again, becoming bottomless pits. "Your species stands at a crossroads. The gate is opening wider. Soon choices must be made." "What choices? Whether mankind becomes partners or food?" The lights flickered. When they stabilized, my reflection was mine again, mirroring my horrified expression perfectly. I quickly covered the mirror, hands trembling. The fifth rule was the most disturbing. They will test your commitment through someone you know. If the person says obsidian sky to you, they are compromised. Do not trust them. 2 days later, after my mandatory session with the JPL psychologist, who seemed suspiciously interested in my sleeping patterns and whether I'd been experiencing unusual visual phenomena, I decided to visit Frank Russo, an old college friend who now worked at the McDonald Observatory in West Texas. If anyone could help me make sense of the Cassini images without triggering whatever surveillance the operators had in place, it was Frank. I didn't call ahead. didn't book a flight online. Instead, I withdrew cash from 3 different ATMs, bought a bus ticket to El Paso, and rented a car using my backup credit card, one not connected to my regular accounts. Paranoid, absolutely. But after what I'd seen, paranoia seemed like the only reasonable response. The McDonald Observatory sits high in the Davis Mountains, one of the darkest night sky locations in the continental United States. Perfect for stargazing, and, I hoped, for hiding from whatever was watching me. I arrived just after sunset, the massive white domes of the telescopes glowing in the fading light. Frank's office was in the main building, tucked away behind the public exhibition area. Finding it empty, I headed toward the observation platform where I knew he often spent evenings. Frank stood alone by the railing, gazing up at the emerging stars, his silhouette sharp against the darkening sky. He didn't seem surprised when I called his name. "Ethan," he said, turning. "I thought you might come." Something in his voice made me pause halfway across the platform. "You did? Word gets around. Heard you were having a rough time after Sam's accident." He gestured toward the heavens. "Beautiful night. Not a cloud in sight. Just that obsidian sky stretching forever." My blood turned to ice water. "What did you just say?" I whispered. Frank smiled, the same too wide smile I'd seen on my reflection. I said, "Isn't it a beautiful obsidian sky tonight?" I backed away, remembering the rule. "You're not Frank." "Of course I am," he stepped forward. "But I've been upgraded. They help me see the truth, Ethan. The same truth they're showing you." He extended his hand. "Come with me to the telescope chamber. There's something I need to show you, something coming through the gate right now." "No." I continued backing toward the exit. "Stay away from me." Frank's expression hardened. "This is your test, Ethan, the 5th rule, proof of your commitment." His voice deepened, taking on that same resonant quality I'd heard through my brother's voice. "You can't run from this. We're everywhere, in every mirror, in every reflection, watching, waiting." I turned and sprinted for the stairs. Behind me, Frank, or whatever was wearing Frank's body, let out an inhuman howl that echoed across the mountain. I didn't look back. As I raced toward my rental car, my phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. 6th rule. When they appear physically, iron disrupts their signal. Carry it always. I hadn't been given the 6th rule yet. Someone, or something, was helping me. I sped down the mountain road, headlights cutting through the darkness, wondering how many more tests I would have to survive before I understood what the operators truly wanted from me, and whether Sam had faced the same choice before he died. I drove through the night, taking random back roads through West Texas, paranoid that Frank, or whatever was controlling him, might be in pursuit. The dashboard clock hit 3:33 a.m. as I passed through a tiny town called Valentine. Right on cue, my car's electrical system failed. The engine died, headlights faded, and I coasted to a stop in front of a closed gas station. The 6th rule repeated in my mind. Iron disrupts their signal. Carry it always. I popped the trunk and rummaged through the emergency kit. Tire iron. It wasn't much, but it was something. I gripped it tightly, the metal cool against my palm, as I scanned the empty street. The town was silent. No lights, no movement, except for one thing. A payphone outside the gas station, its handset swinging gently on its cord, though there was no wind. My cell phone had no signal, so I approached the payphone cautiously, tire iron raised like a weapon. The receiver dangled, and I could hear a faint sound coming from it, static, punctuated by what might have been words. Hesitantly, I put it to my ear. "Hello?" "Ethan Holloway." Not a question. The voice was unfamiliar. Female, elderly, with a heavy Texas accent. "You're looking for answers in the wrong place." I tightened my grip on the tire iron. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you're facing, what your brother faced." A pause. "The operators aren't what they claim to be." "How do you know about them?" "They've been active for decades, manipulating, recruiting. I lost my grandson to them in '97. NASA covered it up, called it a training accident." Her voice hardened. They're not maintenance workers, they're invaders. What do they want? Access. Our world exists on a different frequency than theirs. They can only partially manifest here, which limits them. They need human conduits, operators as they call them, to establish permanent presence. I thought of Frank's distorted smile. They can possess people, only the willing, or those who break certain rules. She sighed. The rules they're giving you are a test, but also a conditioning process. Each one you follow binds you more tightly to their frequency. Then why should I keep following them? Because breaking them outright will kill you. Your brain has already been altered. But there's another way. A counter-protocol. The phone line crackled with interference. The old woman swore. They're trying to cut us off. Listen carefully. Find Gloria Webb at the McDonald Observatory. Not the main facility, the old administrative building. She has what you need. Another burst of static. And Ethan? The seventh rule they'll give you is a trap. Don't. The line went dead. I slammed the receiver down in frustration, then froze as I noticed something across the street. A figure standing perfectly still beside an old water tower. Too tall, too thin to be human, its proportions subtly wrong. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched with eyes that reflected the starlight like mirrors. Clutching the tire iron, I backed toward my rental car. The metal in my hand seemed to vibrate, and the figure made no move to approach. When I reached the car, I found the key in the ignition despite being certain I'd removed it. The engine started immediately. I drove away, watching the rearview mirror as the figure gradually receded into the darkness. It never moved, but somehow I knew it was still watching me. Dawn broke as I neared the observatory again. Not my brightest move, returning to the scene of my escape, but I had no other leads. This time, I parked a mile down the road and hiked up through the scrubby desert terrain, approaching from the blind side of the mountain. The old administrative building wasn't hard to find. A low, bunker-like structure of weathered concrete, separated from the main observatory complex. It looked abandoned, with boarded windows and a rusty chain across the door handles. But the chain hung loose, the lock missing. Inside, dust covered everything except a clear path of footprints leading down a central hallway. I followed them to a door marked Archives, tire iron still gripped tightly in my sweaty hand. "Ms. Webb," I called softly, pushing the door open. The room beyond was a surprise, clean, well lit, and packed with modern computer equipment that contrasted sharply with the ancient filing cabinets lining the walls. A woman sat with her back to me, typing rapidly. "You're late, Mr. Holloway," she said, without turning. "I expected you hours ago." "How did you know I was coming?" She swiveled to face me. Gloria Webb was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with short grey hair and the weathered complexion of someone who'd spent a lifetime under the Texas sun. She wore a NASA staff shirt so faded the logo was barely visible. "Because Martha called me after speaking with you, before they got to her." She gestured to a chair. "Sit, we don't have much time." I remained standing. "How do I know I can trust you? That you're not like Frank?" She reached into her desk drawer and removed something that made me raise the tire iron defensively, until I realized it was just a small metal box. She opened it to reveal what looked like a crude iron bracelet. "Meteorite iron," she said. "More effective than that tire iron you're clutching. It doesn't just disrupt their signal, it blocks them from reading you." She slid it across the desk. "Put it on." I hesitated, then set down the tire iron and fastened the bracelet around my wrist. It was heavier than it looked. "Your brother had one just like it," Gloria said quietly. My head snapped up. "Sam, you knew my brother. He came to me 3 months before his accident. He'd been working communications for deep space missions, including Cassini. He was one of the first to notice the anomalies in the SATURN data." She leaned forward. "But unlike you, he didn't keep it to himself. He reported it through official channels. And they shut him down, classified the findings, reassigned him." Her expression darkened. "But it was too late. He'd already been noticed by the operators." My mind raced. So, he was running from them the night he died? Gloria nodded. Martha and I helped him, gave him equipment, knowledge, but they found him anyway. She tapped the meteorite bracelet on my wrist. He wasn't wearing this when it mattered most. Who are you people? Some kind of resistance? We're former NASA employees who know the truth. Over the decades, a few of us have pieced it together. The operators have been infiltrating Earth's space program since the beginning. Kennedy wanted to warn the public. That's why they eliminated him. Wait, you're saying the operators killed JFK? Gloria's mouth twitched. That's a conversation for another time. What matters now is that they're accelerating their plans. The Saturn gate is fully operational. The Cassini probe didn't just happen to dive into Saturn. It was guided there to keep it from transmitting more images. But it did transmit. I found them. Exactly. Which means either the destruction protocol failed, or someone inside wanted that data to get out. She began typing again, pulling up a series of images on her screen. These were taken by various NASA missions over the past 50 years. Mars, Venus, Europa, the Moon, all showing similar structures to what you found in the Saturn data. The images were undeniable. The same angular constructions, the same impossible geometries. Gates. They were building gates throughout the solar system. What is the seventh rule? I asked suddenly. The woman on the phone, Martha, she said it was a trap. Gloria's expression grew grave. The seventh rule is what got your brother killed. It compels you to activate something within yourself, something they planted when you first decoded their signal. Planted, like a trigger. More like a beacon. The final rule forces you to switch it on, opening yourself fully to their frequency. She met my eyes. Once activated, you become like Frank, a conduit, physically here, but your consciousness replaced by one of them. How do I stop it? The counter protocol. Gloria handed me a flash drive. This contains modified versions of the first 6 rules. Following them will gradually reset your neural pathways, break their conditioning. And if they give me the 7th rule before the counter protocol works, then you must reject it completely, break the pattern. She gripped my arm. But be warned, the mental backlash could kill you. Your brain chemistry has already been altered. Outside, a vehicle's engine rumbled to a stop. Gloria tensed, moving to a small window and peering through a gap in the boards. They're here, JPL security vehicles. She turned back, face grim. Dr. Thompson is with them. How did they find me? Your rental car has GPS. She cursed under her breath. We need to move. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the old telescope dome. From there, we can reach my truck. As we hurried down a narrow corridor, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me. Why are you helping me? Why risk everything? Gloria paused at a heavy metal door, inserting an old key into the lock. Because I worked on the Cassini mission. I'm the one who made sure those images were transmitted back to Earth. Her eyes met mine, fierce and determined. And because Sam was my friend, I owe it to him to keep his brother from suffering the same fate. The door swung open to reveal a dark tunnel stretching ahead. As we entered, I heard shouting from the direction of the archives. They were getting closer. Run, Gloria whispered, and whatever happens, don't let them give you the 7th rule. We plunged into the darkness, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind us as I struggled to understand the full scope of what I'd stumbled into, and whether I'd make it out alive. The maintenance tunnel was a claustrophobic nightmare, barely 6 feet high, forcing me to hunch as we ran. The only light came from Gloria's small flashlight, its beam bouncing wildly with our movements. Water dripped from rusted pipes overhead, and our footsteps echoed off the concrete walls. How much farther? I gasped, the meteorite bracelet feeling heavier with each step. Almost there, Gloria replied, her breath steady despite our pace. The tunnel connects to the basement of the old telescope dome. From there, we can access an emergency exit that leads to the service road. Behind us, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Boots on concrete shouted commands. I risked a glance back and saw flashlight beams stabbing through the darkness. We reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Gloria headed left without hesitation. This way. The right tunnel is a dead end, and the center one leads back to the main complex. As we turned the corner, a metallic clang echoed from somewhere ahead. Gloria froze, grabbing my arm to stop me. "That's not possible," she whispered. "No one should be ahead of us." Yet the sounds were unmistakable, footsteps approaching from the direction we were heading. We were caught between 2 groups. "In here," Gloria hissed, pulling me toward a rusted maintenance door I hadn't noticed. It opened with a protesting squeal, revealing a small equipment room filled with ancient electrical panels and dust-covered tools. We squeezed inside, closing the door until only a sliver remained open. I held my breath as the footsteps from ahead grew louder, then stopped just outside our hiding place. "Signal's strongest here," said a voice I recognized as Dr. Thompson's. "He's close." Another voice responded, Frank's. "The woman is interfering. Her countermeasures make precise location difficult." "Find them," Thompson said. "The gateway activation sequence is already underway. We need the final conduit." Their footsteps moved past, continuing down the tunnel toward the pursuing security team. Once the sound faded, Gloria pushed the door fully open. "We don't have much time," she said grimly. "If they're talking about gateway activation, it means they're accelerating their timeline." "What exactly is this gateway?" I asked as we hurried in the opposite direction. "It's what the Cassini images showed, a massive structure within Saturn that creates a passage between our dimension and theirs. They've built smaller versions throughout the solar system, but Saturn's is the primary entry point." She glanced at me. "They need 7 human conduits to fully activate it, 1 for each major gate." The tunnel ended at a heavy metal door. Gloria inserted a key, turned it, and pushed. Nothing happened. "Damn it," she muttered, shoving harder. "It's jammed." I added my weight, and together we forced it open enough to squeeze through. Beyond lay what had once been the basement of the observatory dome, now mostly collapsed with chunks of concrete and twisted metal creating an obstacle course in the darkness. "Watch your step," Gloria warned. "This section was damaged in the earthquake last year." We picked our way carefully across the rubble. Through gaps in the ceiling, I could see the curved inner surface of the dome above, starlight filtering through holes in its structure. "Why me?" I asked as we climbed over a fallen support beam. Of all the people who could have found those Cassini images, why did they target me specifically? Gloria paused, turning to face me. "It wasn't random, Ethan. You were selected because of your connection to Sam. The operators believe in symmetry, patterns. When they lost Sam as a potential conduit, they immediately focused on you. Blood calls to blood, as they say." "But why 7 conduits? What's special about that number?" "It's not the number that matters, it's the configuration. Each conduit serves as an anchor point for their dimensional overlay. 6 points create the boundary, and the 7th..." She stopped abruptly, staring past me. I turned to follow her gaze. Dr. Thompson stood 20 feet away, a pistol held casually at his side. He looked surprisingly calm, almost amused. "The 7th serves as the keystone," he finished for her. "The final piece that completes the circuit." He gestured with the gun. "Hello, Ethan." Gloria stepped in front of me. "He knows what you are, Thompson, what you all are." Thompson smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What we are is inevitable, Gloria. You've been fighting us for 30 years now, and we're closer than ever to completion." "You killed Sam Holloway," she said flatly. "Technically, he killed himself, refused to accept his role just like your grandson refused his." Thompson's face twitched, a subtle wrongness in his expression. "Such a waste. But this one," he nodded toward me, "this one will serve." "How many of the JPL staff have you taken over?" I asked, trying to keep him talking while I frantically searched for an escape route. "Enough. Directors, department heads, key scientists." His smile widened unnaturally. "We're particularly fond of astronomers. They spend so much time looking up, seeking contact, they practically invite us in." I felt Gloria tense beside me. She was planning something. "The 7th rule," I said, drawing Thompson's full attention. "What is it?" His eyes gleamed with an internal light that wasn't human. Anxious to complete your conditioning? Very well. He took a step forward. The seventh rule is simple. Accept your true purpose. Speak the words, "I am the gate," while facing Saturn, and your transformation will be complete. The moment he finished speaking, Gloria moved with surprising speed for her age. She shoved me hard to the left while lunging right, creating two moving targets. Thompson fired, the gunshot deafening in the enclosed space. Gloria cried out, stumbling but staying upright as she dove behind a concrete pillar. I scrambled behind a fallen section of wall, heart hammering. The meteorite bracelet burned against my skin, vibrating as if responding to Thompson's presence. "You can't escape," Thompson called, his voice shifting to that same resonant tone I'd heard from Frank and my reflection. "The others are coming. All exits are covered." "Ethan!" Gloria shouted from her position. "The counter protocol. Use it now." The flash drive she'd given me was still in my pocket, but how was I supposed to use it here now with no computer? As if reading my thoughts, Gloria yelled, "It's not digital. The drive contains iron filings and a magnetic pattern. Place it against your forehead." Thompson fired again, the bullet chipping concrete near my head. "Don't listen to her, Ethan. She wants to rob you of your destiny. Your brother rejected his purpose and look what happened to him. Broken at the bottom of a ravine." My anger flared. "You killed him. We offered him ascension. He chose oblivion." Another shot, closer this time. "You don't have to make the same mistake." I pulled out the flash drive, feeling its weight. Could it really contain what Gloria claimed? "The old woman is bleeding out, Ethan," Thompson called. "I hit her lung. She'll be dead in minutes. No one left to fill your head with lies." I peered around the edge of my cover and saw Gloria slumped against the pillar, her shirt darkening with blood. Our eyes met across the room and she nodded weakly. "Trust," she mouthed. I pressed the flash drive to my forehead. At first, nothing happened. Then a searing pain erupted in my skull, like ice picks driving through my temples. I cried out, dropping to my knees as images flashed behind my eyelids. The Cassini photographs, Saturn's swirling clouds, the structures beneath them, the silhouette watching from within. A high-pitched whine filled my ears, growing louder until I thought my head would explode. Through the pain, I heard Thompson shouting, his voice frantic now. "No! Stop him!" The world tilted sideways. The last thing I saw before consciousness fled was Dr. Thompson rushing toward me, his face rippling like water, revealing something inhuman beneath the human mask. I woke to the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment. My head throbbed with each pulse and my mouth felt like it was stuffed with cotton. I tried to open my eyes, but they seemed glued shut. When I finally managed, harsh fluorescent light stabbed my retinas, sending fresh waves of pain through my skull. "He's awake," a voice said. Unfamiliar, male, professional. A shadow moved across the light. I blinked, trying to focus. A man in a white coat stood over me, checking monitors. Not Thompson. My muscles relaxed slightly. "Mr. Holloway, can you hear me?" the doctor asked, shining a penlight into my eyes. I tried to speak, but only managed a croak. The doctor offered a straw, and I greedily sucked down water. "Where am I?" I finally managed. "Austin Memorial Hospital. You're in good hands." His smile seemed genuine. "I'm Dr. Brennan. You've been unconscious for nearly 3 days." 3 days. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The woman I was with, Gloria Webb, is she... "I'm afraid no one else was found at the scene," Dr. Brennan said, his tone carefully neutral. "You were alone when the Ranger Patrol discovered you." My memory flashed with images of Gloria slumped against the pillar, blood soaking her shirt. Had she somehow escaped? Or had the operators removed all evidence of her presence? "What happened to me?" I asked, probing gently for what they thought they knew. "According to the report, you were found unconscious in a restricted area of the McDonald Observatory. Possible trespassing, though no charges have been filed." He made a note on his tablet. "Physically, you have a mild concussion and various cuts and bruises. Nothing serious." He didn't mention hallucinations or delusions. Apparently, they were keeping the cover story simple. "There's someone who'd like to speak with you, now that you're awake." Dr. Brennan's expression remained professionally blank. A colleague of yours from JPL says he's been quite concerned. My heart rate spiked, the monitor betraying my panic. I don't want visitors, I said quickly. He was quite insistent. Dr. Brennan glanced at the door, said it was a matter of national security. Before I could protest further, the door opened, but it wasn't Thompson who entered. It was a man I'd never seen before, tall, military-bearing, with close-cropped grey hair and the kind of weathered face that suggested decades of outdoor service. "Thank you, Doctor," he said. "I'd like a moment alone with Mr. Holloway." Dr. Brennan nodded and left. The stranger waited until the door closed, then pulled a chair next to my bed. "My name is Colonel James Harwood, United States Air Force, attached to NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office." He showed me an ID that looked legitimate. "And you, Mr. Holloway, have stumbled into something far above your security clearance." I said nothing, trying to determine if he was one of them, an operator wearing human skin. The meteorite bracelet was gone from my wrist, I noticed, leaving me no way to tell. "Dr. Thompson and Frank Russo have been reported missing," Harwood continued, watching me carefully. "As has Gloria Webb, though that's been the case for nearly a decade now. That caught me off guard." "What do you mean?" "Gloria was with me 3 days ago." Harwood raised an eyebrow. "Gloria Webb was declared dead in 2014. Car accident in the Davis Mountains. Body burned beyond recognition." My mind raced. If Gloria had been dead for a decade, then who was the woman who'd helped me? Another operator, or something else entirely? "The flash drive," I said suddenly. "Where is it?" "No flash drive was found on your person." Harwood leaned forward. "Mr. Holloway, I need you to tell me exactly what you saw in those Cassini transmissions." I hesitated. The first rule echoed in my mind: do not discuss the images with anyone. But Gloria's counter-protocol had done something to me. The compulsion to follow the rules felt weaker now, more like a suggestion than a command. "Structures," I said finally. "Artificial structures beneath Saturn's cloud layer, and instructions, 7 rules that seemed embedded in the data itself." Harwood didn't look surprised. "We've been tracking these anomalies for decades, Mr. Holloway. Not just at Saturn, Mars, Venus, Jupiter's moons. Evidence of non-human architecture that appears and disappears from our imaging." "The gates," I murmured. He nodded. "That's what we call them too. Transmitters of some kind, we believe. Or receivers. The problem is, we don't know who built them or why. And those who investigate too closely tend to change." "Like Thompson," I said. "And Frank." "Precisely. We lose good people to whatever intelligence is behind this. They remain physically present, but fundamentally altered." He studied me with penetrating eyes. "Which makes you a very interesting case, Mr. Holloway. You were exposed to the same influence that took Thompson and Russo, yet here you are, still yourself." "The counter-protocol," I explained. "It did something to break their conditioning." "Yes, we gathered as much from the scene." Harwood reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, the meteorite bracelet. "This is quite the piece of technology, far beyond our current capabilities." Relief flooded through me at the sight of the bracelet. "May I have it back?" Instead of answering, Harwood said, "Tell me about the 7th rule, Mr. Holloway." I tensed. "How do I know I can trust you? That you're not one of them?" "You don't." He placed the bracelet on the bed within my reach. "But I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help us understand what we're facing." I slipped the bracelet on, its familiar weight reassuring. "The 7th rule is a trigger. It completes the conditioning process, turning the subject into a conduit for them. Thompson said it was, accept your true purpose. Speak the words, 'I am the gate,' while facing Saturn, and your transformation will be complete." Harwood nodded slowly. "And these operators, as they call themselves, what do they want?" "Access to our world. They exist on a different frequency, a different dimension." They need human conduits to establish a permanent presence here. I hesitated, then added, "There's something else." They mentioned my brother, Sam. Said he was originally targeted before his accident, that he refused to accept his role. "Your brother worked communications for several deep space missions, including Cassini," Harwood confirmed. "His accident was suspicious, especially given what happened to others who worked closely with that data." A thought struck me. "You've known about this all along. You let people like my brother die rather than expose the truth." Harwood's expression darkened. "It's not that simple. When we first discovered the anomalies in the 70s, we tried going public. The result was the systematic elimination of everyone involved, made to look like heart attacks, suicides, accidents. Since then, we've operated in the shadows, gathering information, trying to understand what we're up against." "And what exactly are we up against?" "We're not sure, but we have a theory." He glanced at the door, then lowered his voice. "We believe there's a war going on, a dimensional war. The operators are just one faction. There's another group, equally powerful, who seem to be working against them. They may be the source of your counter-protocol." I thought of the mysterious Gloria, supposedly dead for a decade, and the flash drive she'd given me. The woman who helped me may have been a representative of this other faction. They rarely interact directly, but occasionally they provide tools, assistance. He tapped the meteorite bracelet, like this. The door opened and Dr. Brennan returned. "I'm sorry, Colonel, but visiting hours are ending, and Mr. Holloway needs rest." Harwood stood. "Of course." He handed me a plain business card with only a phone number printed on it. "When you're released, call this number. We have a facility where you'll be safe while we figure out our next steps." After he left, I sank back into the pillows, mind racing with everything I'd learned. Two opposing non-human intelligences using Earth as a battleground in some interdimensional conflict, with humans as pawns or weapons. It sounded insane, yet after what I'd experienced, I couldn't dismiss it. That night, I dreamed of Saturn. Its rings gleamed like a halo around the massive gas giant, but as I watched, the planet's surface seemed to ripple, cloud layers peeling back to reveal the massive structure beneath, a vast geometric construct that pulsed with internal light. Within its central aperture, something moved, something massive, patient, ancient. I woke, gasping, sweat-soaked sheets twisted around me. The room was dark except for the glow of monitoring equipment. 3:33 a.m., according to the clock on the wall. Of course. A figure stood in the corner of the room. Not a nurse or doctor, its proportions were wrong. Its silhouette too tall, too thin. I reached instinctively for the call button, but froze when the figure spoke. "The rules are broken." The voice was neither male nor female, but a discordant harmony of tones that made my teeth ache. "The conditioning is incomplete." I clutched the meteorite bracelet like a talisman. "Who are you?" The figure took a single step forward, into a shaft of moonlight from the window. I couldn't help the small sound that escaped my throat. It had a humanoid shape, but that's where the resemblance ended. Its skin was like oil on water, iridescent, constantly shifting. Where a face should be, there was only a reflective surface that showed distorted versions of my own terrified expression. "We are what you call the operators," it said. "Though that is a simplification. We are the architects of the junction." I tried to keep my voice steady. "What do you want from me?" "You were to be the seventh, the keystone. Now you are corrupted, unusable." It tilted its head at an impossible angle. "Yet still valuable. You have been touched by the enemy." "The other faction?" "The ones who gave me the counter-protocol. They are not what they present themselves to be." The figure's surface rippled with something like agitation. "They do not wish to preserve your world. They wish to consume it in a different way." I remembered Harwood's words about a dimensional war. "Why should I believe you?" "Belief is irrelevant. Observe instead." It gestured toward the window. "What do you see in the sky?" I glanced out at the night sky. Saturn wasn't visible from this angle, but something else caught my eye, an unusually bright star pulsing with a rhythmic pattern. "They are coming," the operator said. "Their gateway activates without a keystone. Unstable, dangerous. They grow desperate." "And what happens when they arrive?" I asked. "Consumption, absorption, the rewriting of your dimensional frequency." Its reflective face showed me a stretched, distorted version of myself. "We offered partnership. They offer only extinction." Before I could respond, the hospital room door swung open. Dr. Brennan stood there, backlit by the hallway lights, a syringe in his hand. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, his voice oddly flat. I heard voices. The operator had vanished. I was alone with the doctor, who was now approaching my bed with measured steps. "I was just having a bad dream," I lied, suddenly certain that Dr. Brennan wasn't what he appeared to be. "I have something to help you sleep," he said, raising the syringe. In the dim light, I could see his eyes now, reflective, like mirrors. I knew with sudden clarity that whatever was in that syringe wasn't meant to help me sleep. It was meant to finish what Thompson had started. As Dr. Brennan approached with the syringe, time seemed to slow. My options were limited. I was still connected to monitoring equipment, weak from days unconscious, and facing what appeared to be another operator-controlled human. The meteorite bracelet vibrated against my wrist, growing warm. Acting on instinct, I twisted it around so the metal pressed directly against my inner wrist, where my pulse throbbed. The effect was immediate and shocking. Dr. Brennan, or whatever was controlling him, recoiled as if struck, the syringe dropping from suddenly trembling fingers. "What have you done?" he hissed, his voice distorting. His face rippled like disturbed water, features briefly rearranging into something inhuman before settling back into human form. I yanked the monitoring sensors off my chest and ripped out my IV, triggering several alarms. Blood beaded from the needle site, but I had no time to worry about that. I scrambled off the bed, keeping the bracelet extended toward Brennan like a weapon. "Stay back," I warned. He smiled, that same unnatural smile I'd seen on Frank and Thompson. "There's nowhere to go, Ethan Holloway. This facility is secured." The door behind him opened and a nurse appeared, likely responding to the alarms. "Doctor, is everything—" Without looking, Brennan backhanded her with such force that she slammed into the wall and crumpled to the floor, unconscious or worse. The casual violence was terrifying in its efficiency. "The seventh conduit will be found," Brennan said, stepping over the nurse's body. "With or without you." I backed toward the window. Third floor, according to the view. Too high to jump. "Others are coming to contain you," Brennan continued, his movements becoming jerky, less human. "The enemy has invested too much in you to let you perish, but we can ensure you're no longer useful to them." The hospital room door swung open again. I tensed, expecting more operator-controlled staff, but instead, Colonel Harwood burst in, flanked by two men in tactical gear. They took in the scene in an instant. The fallen nurse, Brennan's threatening posture, me backed against the window. "Down!" Harwood shouted, raising what looked like a modified taser. I dropped just as he fired. Two electrified prongs struck Brennan in the chest, delivering a charge that lit him up like a Christmas tree. He convulsed, body jerking unnaturally, and collapsed. "Move!" Harwood grabbed my arm, yanking me toward the door. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before backup arrives." "What was that weapon?" I asked as we ran down the corridor past startled hospital staff. "Specialized voltage," Harwood replied. "Disrupts their control temporarily. Doesn't hurt the host, just severs the connection." We descended via the emergency stairs, the two tactical officers taking lead and rear positions. They moved with military precision, checking corners and doorways. At the ground floor, instead of exiting, Harwood led us deeper into the hospital service area. "Too many of them at the main entrances," he explained in response to my questioning look. "Hospital surveillance showed at least 8 individuals converging on your room before we got here." "How did you know I was in danger?" "We didn't, not specifically, but after our conversation we installed some discrete monitoring equipment in your room. When it detected a spectral anomaly consistent with operator presence, we mobilized." He pushed through a door marked maintenance only. We've had a team on standby since you were admitted. The maintenance corridor led to a loading dock where an unmarked red van waited, engine running. We piled in, Harwood practically shoving me into the back before jumping in after me. The doors had barely closed when the driver accelerated away from the hospital. "We have 3 minutes until they track our route," one of the tactical officers reported, checking something on a tablet. Switching to countermeasures. The van made a series of rapid turns, eventually pulling into an underground parking garage. We switched vehicles quickly, from the van to 2 separate SUVs with government plates. "Split protocol," Harwood instructed. "Alpha team takes the decoy route. We're going dark." As our SUV emerged from the garage, I caught a glimpse of the night sky. The bright star I'd noticed earlier seemed even more prominent now, pulsing with an unnatural rhythm. "You see it too," Harwood noted, following my gaze. "The operator in my room said it's their gateway activating without a keystone, that it's unstable." Harwood's expression darkened. "That matches our observations. We've been tracking unusual activity in Saturn's rings for the past 72 hours. Electromagnetic anomalies, gravitational fluctuations. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating." "Where are we going?" "Secure facility in the Davis Mountains, off-grid, heavily shielded." He handed me a small duffel bag. "Change of clothes, basic necessities. Your old ones were confiscated as evidence." As the city lights faded behind us, I changed in the back seat, wincing at various bruises and cuts I hadn't noticed before. The clothes were my size, but generic. Jeans, t-shirt, hoodie, new running shoes. "You came prepared," I observed. "We've been dealing with the operators for decades, Mr. Holloway. We have protocols." Harwood handed me a bottle of water and 2 pills. "Analgesics, non-narcotic. For the headache, I assume you have." I hesitated, remembering Dr. Brennan's syringe. Harwood sighed, took one of the pills and swallowed it. Satisfied. I took the medication, realizing how parched I was. The cool water was heaven on my dry throat. "You said the operators have been active for decades," I said after a moment. "How long has your group been fighting them?" "Since 1969, Harwood replied, "after Apollo 11 returned with more than moon rocks." That caught me off guard. "The first moon landing." "What did they find?" "Evidence of a gate. Small, dormant, but definitely artificial. Armstrong saw it during an unauthorized EVA that was scrubbed from the official record." Harwood's face was grim in the dim light of the SUV's interior. "When they returned, 3 of the quarantine staff began exhibiting unusual behaviors. 2 weeks later, a NASA administrator killed his entire family, then himself. The official investigation found trace elements on the lunar samples that couldn't be identified by the technology of the time. And that's when your organization formed." "Not immediately. At first, it was just a handful of military and NASA personnel trying to contain what they didn't understand. After the incidents surrounding Apollo 14 and 16, it became clear this was something beyond normal security protocols." He looked out at the dark Texas landscape rushing past. "The Planetary Defense Coordination Office was our public face, established much later. Our real designation is Project Lighthouse." "Because you watch for approaching dangers," I guessed. "Because we try to guide humanity safely through dark waters." Harwood checked his watch. "We should reach the facility by dawn. Try to rest if you can. Once we arrive, things will move quickly." Despite my churning thoughts, exhaustion eventually won out. I dozed fitfully, waking occasionally when the SUV hit a rough patch of road or made a sharp turn. Each time I'd check the meteorite bracelet, its presence on my wrist, a small comfort. During one such moment of wakefulness, I caught Harwood staring at the bracelet with a troubled expression. "Something wrong?" I asked. He hesitated. "That technology. We've never been able to replicate it. Our scientists have studied similar artifacts for years without success." "Where did they come from originally? These countermeasures against the operators?" "They started appearing in the mid-70s. Anonymous deliveries to key personnel, always when we were at our most vulnerable." His expression was unreadable, almost as if something was cultivating us, guiding our resistance. The implication hung in the air between us. If the operators were one side of a dimensional conflict, and some other force was providing tools to fight them, we were indeed pawns in a much larger game. Dawn was breaking when we finally turned onto an unmarked road that wound up into the Davis Mountains. The landscape was stark and beautiful, all rust-colored rock and scrubby vegetation under a vast Texas sky. After several miles, we passed through a checkpoint disguised as a ranger station, then continued up a narrow road that eventually ended at what looked like an abandoned mining operation. Once we stopped, I realized the deception. The crumbling outbuildings and rusted equipment concealed modern security systems, armed personnel emerging from hidden positions. A section of rock face slid aside to reveal a tunnel entrance large enough for vehicles. "Welcome to Lighthouse Alpha," Harwood said as our SUV descended into the earth, one of 3 facilities dedicated to monitoring extra-dimensional incursions. The tunnel opened into a massive underground cavern that had been converted into a high-tech facility. Multiple levels were carved into the rock walls, connected by staircases and elevators. The central area housed what appeared to be a command center, with dozens of workstations and massive display screens showing satellite imagery, data feeds, and what looked like real-time views of Saturn. "The gateway is accelerating its activation cycle," a technician reported as we approached the main display. "Energy readings have increased by 340% in the last 6 hours." On the screen, Saturn's rings seemed to be distorting, waves of energy visibly rippling through them. The bright star I'd seen from the hospital was prominently displayed in a separate feed, no longer just a point of light, but a growing distortion in space itself. "They're coming," I murmured, remembering the operator's words. "Without a keystone." Harwood gave me a sharp look. "Which means instability, danger." I touched the meteorite bracelet. "But I don't know if we should trust either side in this conflict. Both the operators and whatever faction Gloria represented, they're using us, manipulating humanity for their own purposes." "Perhaps," Harwood conceded. "But right now, we need to focus on the immediate threat. If that gateway fully activates, unstable or not, something is coming through." He turned to the command center staff. "Initiate firebreak protocol. Authorization, Harwood Charlie 7 Echo 9. A ripple of tension spread through the room as staff began carrying out what were clearly emergency procedures. "What's firebreak?" I asked. Harwood's eyes were cold, determined. "Our last resort if dimensional containment fails. A direct strike on the manifestation point." "You're going to attack Saturn?" "No." He nodded toward a display showing weapon systems coming online. "We're going to attack what's trying to come through from the other side." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Harwood assigned me a small team of scientists who bombarded me with questions about everything I'd experienced. The rules, the operator visitations, the counter protocol. I described each encounter in exhaustive detail while they recorded everything, occasionally exchanging significant glances when I mentioned specific details. Dr. Abrams, the lead researcher, was particularly interested in the meteorite bracelet. "May I?" he asked, extending his hand. I hesitated, reluctant to remove my only protection. "We'll be brief, and you'll be monitored the entire time," Harwood assured me. "We need to understand how it works if we're going to replicate its effects." Reluctantly, I slipped off the bracelet and handed it to Dr. Abrams, who immediately placed it in a specialized scanning device. The moment it left my wrist, I felt exposed, vulnerable, as if I'd stepped out from a shelter into a storm. "Fascinating," Dr. Abrams murmured, studying the readouts. "It's generating a localized field that distorts certain frequencies, almost like a dimensional damping effect. Can you make more?" Harwood asked. "Not quickly. The material composition is unlike anything in our mineral databases. The alloy contains elements we can't even identify." He looked up from his instruments. "But we might be able to amplify its effect, create a larger protective field." Throughout the examination, I kept glancing at the main display showing Saturn. The distortion in its rings was growing more pronounced, the energy signatures more chaotic. "How long until the gateway fully activates?" I asked. "At current progression, less than 12 hours, a technician replied. "But the pattern is non-linear. It could accelerate unpredictably." "And your firebreak protocol, will it work?" Harwood's expression was grim. Theoretically, we've never had to deploy it before. Dr. Abrams returned my bracelet, and I immediately slipped it back on, feeling a wave of relief as its protective field enveloped me again. You're exhausted, Harwood noted. There's a rest area 1 level down. Get some sleep if you can. We'll wake you if anything changes. I wanted to protest, to stay and monitor the situation, but the events of the past few days had finally caught up with me. My body felt leaden, my mind foggy. I followed a security officer to a small but comfortable room with a bed, bathroom, and basic amenities. Despite my exhaustion, sleep didn't come easily. When it did, my dreams were chaotic, fragments of memories mixed with images of Saturn's clouds parting to reveal vast, impossible structures. Sam's face twisted in fear, Gloria's blood-soaked shirt, Dr. Thompson's inhuman smile. I jerked awake, disoriented, to find someone sitting in the chair beside my bed. For a fleeting, terrifying moment, I thought it was an operator. Then my vision cleared, and I recognized the figure. "Gloria," I whispered. She looked exactly as she had at the observatory, short grey hair, weathered face, faded NASA shirt. But according to Harwood, Gloria Webb had been dead for a decade. "Not exactly," she replied, her voice carrying that same harmonic quality I'd heard from the operator in my hospital room, but somehow warmer, less discordant. "This form is convenient. Familiar to you?" I sat up slowly, pulse racing. "You're one of them. The other faction?" "Yes." It smiled sadly. "Your kind needs labels, categories. The operators call us the enemy. Your Colonel Harwood's organization has classified us as opposing non-human intelligence. Neither is accurate. What should I call you then?" My true designation wouldn't translate into any human language. For simplicity, you may think of me as a guardian. Guardian of what? Balance, potential, choice. She gestured vaguely. The operators do not lie about their nature. They are indeed maintainers of a sort. But they maintain stasis, stagnation. We protect change, evolution. I remembered the operator's warning. They said you want to consume our world, just in a different way than they do. From their perspective, that's true. We would transform your reality, open it to possibilities beyond their rigid structure. Her form flickered slightly, momentarily becoming translucent before solidifying again. I cannot maintain this manifestation long. The meteorite dampens my signal. The bracelet, you gave it to me, and now it repels you. A necessary paradox. It protects you from both factions' direct influence, allowing you to choose freely. She leaned forward. The gateway is unstable because it lacks a keystone, the 7th conduit. In their desperation, the operators are attempting to force it open anyway. And what happens if they succeed? A cascading dimensional collapse. Their forces will pour through, but without the stabilizing effect of the keystone, the barrier between dimensions will erode rapidly. Her expression turned grave. Your lighthouse organization's firebreak protocol cannot stop it. It will merely accelerate the deterioration. My mind raced. There has to be another way. There is. Gloria, the guardian, reached out as if to touch my forehead, but stopped just short, her hand hovering inches away. You still carry the 7th rule within you, dormant but present. The counter-protocol didn't erase it, merely quarantined it. I don't understand. The operators designed a specific frequency pattern requiring 7 human neural networks to stabilize the gateway. 6 are in place. The 7th, yours, would complete the sequence, allowing controlled passage between dimensions. You want me to accept the 7th rule? I backed away. Become their conduit after all? Number, I want you to subvert it. Her form flickered again, more pronounced this time. The operators believe dimensional travel must be controlled, regulated, filtered through their consciousness. We believe direct connection is possible, but only with a willing, unaltered human mind as the keystone. So instead of being their puppet, you want me to be yours. Not a puppet, a collaborator. She stood, her outline becoming increasingly unstable. The choice must be yours, freely made. If you choose the operators, humanity becomes their subservient tool. If you choose us, humanity becomes a partner in a greater cosmic community. If you choose neither, dimensional collapse, I finished for her. Yes. She was barely visible now, her voice fading. When the moment comes, you'll know what to do. Trust your brother's choice. Sam, what did he choose? But she was gone, leaving me alone with more questions than answers. I didn't bother trying to sleep again. Instead, I returned to the command center, where the atmosphere had grown tense. The main display showed alarming patterns of energy cascading through Saturn's rings, and the distortion in Earth's sky had grown large enough to be visible to the naked eye worldwide, triggering global panic. "Your timing is impeccable," Harwood said when he spotted me. "We just received reports of operator-controlled individuals converging on multiple NASA facilities. They're looking for you." "They need me to complete the gateway properly," I explained. "Without the seventh conduit, me, it's unstable. Then we keep you as far from Saturn as possible." Harwood gestured to the weapons systems displayed on another screen. "The firebreak measures are prepared. Specialized missiles designed to disrupt dimensional frequencies." I thought of the Guardian's warning that the firebreak protocol would only accelerate the collapse. What if that makes things worse? It's a calculated risk, but doing nothing guarantees whatever's on the other side comes through. Unless I become the seventh conduit. Harwood's expression hardened. "That's not an option. We've seen what happens to people who accept the operator's control." "I was visited again," I said quietly, "by one of the others, the opposing faction. They say there's a third choice." Before I could elaborate, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights began flashing. "Perimeter breach," someone shouted. "Multiple points of entry." Security feeds showed chaos at the facility's entrance. Guards down, doors forced open. Among the intruders, I recognized familiar faces. Dr. Thompson, Frank Russo, Dr. Brennan, and others I didn't know, all moving with that same unnatural coordination that marked them as operator-controlled. "How did they find us?" Harwood demanded. "Sir, there's some kind of signal being transmitted from inside the facility," a technician reported, fingers flying over her keyboard. "Something is broadcasting our location." All eyes turned to me, or more specifically, to the meteorite bracelet on my wrist. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The Guardian had given me protection that doubled as a beacon. "It's not what you think," I started to explain, but Harwood's expression had already closed off. "Containment team to the command center," he ordered into his radio. "Secure the asset. Asset, not person." I backed away as armed personnel approached from multiple directions. I'd gone from ally to threat in the space of seconds. The facility shook with a distant explosion. On the monitors, I could see operator-controlled intruders moving methodically through the corridors, overwhelming resistance with inhuman strength and coordination. "They're herding us," Harwood realized, "driving us deeper into the facility, away from escape routes." Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered, the main display showing Saturn suddenly magnified, zooming in on a massive vortex forming in the planet's upper atmosphere, a swirling maelstrom of cloud and energy directly above where the Cassini images had shown the gate structure. "It's beginning," I whispered. In that moment, I understood what the Guardian had meant about trusting my brother's choice. Sam had refused to be the operator's puppet, but he'd also refused to be a pawn in the opposing faction's game. He'd chosen a third path, his own. As Harwood's security team closed in and the operator-controlled forces breached another level of the facility, I made my decision. Not for the operators, not for the Guardians, but for humanity, and for Sam. I pressed the meteorite bracelet to my heart and spoke words that came not from any rule, but from my own determination. "I am not your gate. I am the barrier between worlds, and I choose who passes." The bracelet shattered in my hand, fragments cutting into my palm. Blood welled from the wounds as an intense pain radiated from my chest outward. The last thing I saw before consciousness fled was Saturn's vortex on the screen, responding to my words, not opening wider, but beginning to stabilize, to close. Then darkness claimed me once more. Months have passed since the events at Lighthouse Alpha. I'm sitting on a rocky outcrop in the Angeles National Forest, not far from where Sam's car went off the road. The sunset paints the landscape in amber and gold, turning the distant Los Angeles skyline into a glittering mirage. According to official records, the atmospheric anomaly centered over Saturn was a previously unknown interaction between solar radiation and the planet's magnetic field. The global panic subsided with this explanation, humanity's remarkable ability to normalize the extraordinary kicking in once again. But I know better. I still have the scars on my palm where the meteorite bracelet shattered, forming an unusual pattern like a constellation. Sometimes, when I press my fingers against them, I can feel a faint vibration, a reminder that something fundamentally changed inside me that day. Harwood's team found me unconscious amid the chaos of the lighthouse facility breach. Both the operator-controlled individuals and the lighthouse security forces had collapsed simultaneously when the bracelet shattered, as if a power surge had temporarily disrupted all non-human influences. When I came to, Harwood was different, more forthcoming, less militaristic. He explained that the gateway had stabilized in a configuration neither side had anticipated. Not closed, not open, but permeable in a controlled way. Something new. "You did what your brother tried to do," he told me during one of our debriefing sessions. "Sam refused both factions, tried to forge a third option, but he lacked something you had, the complete understanding of both sides' intentions. Project Lighthouse now monitors the gateway constantly. Occasionally, signals come through, fragments of communication from both factions. Neither seems able to manifest physically on Earth anymore, at least not with the freedom they once had. The rules have changed. I'm no longer formally employed by JPL, but I consult for Harwood's organization, helping to interpret the signals. Dr. Thompson, Frank, and the others who had been fully converted never recovered. Their minds burned out when the connection to the operators was severed, but those only partially influenced, like Dr. Brennan, eventually returned to normal with no memory of their actions. As for me, I'm different now. I see things others don't, ripples in reality, moments where the dimensional barriers thin. I dream of Saturn's rings and structures beyond comprehension. Sometimes I wake to find strange equations written in my own handwriting, describing physics that doesn't exist in our current science. I haven't told Harwood everything, like how sometimes in reflective surfaces, I catch glimpses of Gloria or whatever used her form, watching me with what might be pride. Or how, on certain nights, I feel Sam's presence nearby, as if he's standing guard at the edges of my perception. The sun dips below the horizon, and I rise to leave. In my pocket is a small fragment of the meteorite bracelet that Harwood doesn't know I kept, a sliver of alien technology that sometimes warms when I approach places where the dimensional barrier is thin. The seventh rule was never spoken, not the operator's version, not the Guardian's. Instead, I created my own. The gate exists within and without, neither fully open nor closed. I am its keeper, not its servant. As I walk back to my car, I glance up at the early evening sky, where Saturn will soon be visible. The gate remains dormant for now, but I know both factions are regrouping, rethinking, adapting. This isn't over. But neither am I merely a pawn anymore. I've become something else entirely, something neither side anticipated. A human with a choice,